Virtue. I am virtuous. You are virtuous. What do we mean by that? What is that? Well, if we look at the definition of virtue in the dictionary, we might find something like that. A good trait, a moral trait which represents something good, something desirable, something worthy of praise. Examples like honesty, justice, humility, love of goodness, and things like that. So based on that, we could tell that I am actually virtuous or you are actually virtuous if we meet those characteristics. Alright, but my question is, what's in it for you? I don't want to be very reductionist over here and very pragmatic, you might say. But this is what philosophy is all about. What's in it for you? Of course, you might say that this is not virtue because virtue basically is something that you do that you have nothing in. You are not waiting for any reward or anything because it's virtue. It defines itself that way. But I do not believe that. If you tell me that I'm not waiting for any type of praise or any type of reward from being virtuous, therefore you have nothing in it, why wouldn't you be doing something else? As being virtuous doesn't give you anything, and doing something else wouldn't give you anything at the same time. It might be even better. This other thing or this opposite thing might even give you something else, and it will be evidentially better than getting nothing. So there must be necessarily something in it. What's that? I wonder what that is. What is it that pushes us to be virtuous? What is it that pushes somebody to be honest, to be compassionate, to be modest, such things like that? What's the purpose of that? Let's say, for example, that you're virtuous, that you're honest, alright? If you being honest doesn't give you anything, you might as well be a liar bastard and not get anything from it. But the fact that you're actually choosing does mean that you have something in it. And the fact that I have called and that I have said a liar bastard like this means that I'm subscribing to this entire moral theory. But anyway, if being honest gives you something, we need to know what that is. For example, if you are honest, you might be known, for example, that you are an honest man. If you are known for your honesty, you got the praise from it and you are honored by your society. Being recognized by the crowd or by your group or by your tribe, to put it more in evolutional terms. Being recognized by your tribe, praised and honored for your honesty gives you a pleasure, right? Alright. Let's say that I'm not a fan of virtue. Let's say that I'm a fan of vice. I don't like being honest. I like lying to people. What does that give me? How could I make such a choice? Well, perhaps because my preference is to get pleasure from this vice rather than that particular virtue. Perhaps the pleasure of me lying to people outweighs me being honest to people. What would that give me? Since I have chosen, and people cannot just choose randomly, they know that they have pleasures as an outcome for every particular action they do. So, if a vice gives me a pleasure A, and a virtue gives me a pleasure B, and they're all just pleasures, what's the difference? I know this is a very reductionist view about the world. I don't recommend it actually, but this is what it is. I don't care about feelings, I care about the truth. And if it's the case that this is a pleasure A and pleasure B, why we don't see like 50% like this about lying people and honest people? Why is there an internal drive that pushes us to just trust people? Why is there something like this? Why, if we meet like 10 people, like 8 of them or 7 of them, the majority of them turns out to be honest, but those last 3 or 4 turn out to be lying? Why is it that the majority is that? Well, this thing has to do with how we have evolved as a group. We have evolved in a tribe. Therefore, being honest reinforces the tribe trusting you and praising you and honoring you. Therefore, it supports your position in the tribe, being accepted and not refused. Because because if you are accepted, you have a higher chance of surviving rather than being refused. So we could say that honesty gave pleasure to the tribe and contributed to its long-term survival. Therefore, the ones that were not very honest were expelled, were refused, therefore they didn't survive, while only the ones that accepted those social terms of being honest and decent or whatever survived and got to pass on their genes. This is why we could say that the majority is just honest. Like even if you want just to say a lie, if you were questioned by someone and you want to say a lie, you experience some internal force that just want to stop you from saying this lie. All of a sudden you're hesitating and you are all red and shaky or whatever. Some of you might say, well, since we are all the descendants of people that were honest, why are there still people lying over there? Well, I might say that this is a fallacy. If we like say 100 people, if we took 100 people and found out that only 20 of them are lying, it means that we have like 80% of honesty in that group. And the exception reinforces the rule that the rule of humans is to be honest. Like, take this example. If we have like 100 birds, like a seagull for example, if we had 100 seagulls and only 10 of them are black, we cannot say that this particular bird is black by nature just because there is an exception. But we are logically pushed to say that the nature of this bird is white because the exception reinforced the rule. 20% of dishonest people proves that people are overly honest. Let's get back to the pleasure thing. Like when you say virtue, we automatically link it to something transcendental, something higher than us, something very good, something beautiful, something internally good, something inherently good, something worthy of praise, something unselfish, and all of those beautiful abstract things that we might come up with. But if we like reduce those things and see the end of them, like we just reduce virtue, we do not just stop on its definition, but we go deeper to see why are we virtuous. We could, for example, give the example of the capacity of avoiding drinking alcohol, the aversion, the capacity of aversion. You might take person A has the capacity of aversion, but person B who is an alcoholic. Okay, you of course give more worth and praise person A because he has the capacity for not drinking alcohol, but person B, he's an alcoholic, he's very undesirable. Alright, you could say that aversion is a virtue. If you have aversion of some specific toxin, it's a virtue, it's a virtuous thing to do, to protect your life and to protect other people. The problem here is, I can just say that person A is just smarter than person B. Person A has foresight. He sees that he would get more pleasure in the long run, but person B just takes the pleasure of the here and now. Based on that, you can actually apply this on all virtue examples and you will find the same result. Virtue is just being clever. That's all. This is all what you can say about pleasure. It's just being clever, being smart. It's the ability of foresight. We have evolved that as a species. Evolution is very crucial for virtue, for morality as a whole concept. What is this foresight? We have developed that as species. The ability to postpone our pleasures. The ability, for example, to gather food for the winter. the ability for to save some food just for the evening, the ability to share food with the other people. This particular ability is what we see now. Like for example, you give me a cake, but I'm very concerned about staying fit and healthy. Staying fit and healthy will give me pleasure, alright. But of course, eating this cake right now will give me also pleasure. So I'm choosing right now. I'm choosing, and my preference is to stay fit and healthy. I'm choosing the long-term pleasure. This is what the mind is. It's just this. Not just this, but this is definitely a fundamental feature of the mind. So can we say that a person who is virtuous is better than a person who is not a fan of virtue, but vice? No, we cannot say that, because the virtuous person is just a smarter person. He knows how to deal with pleasure. He just intentionally postpones his pleasure for the long term, because he knows the long-term pleasure exceeds far more the pleasure of the here and now. But the other person just doesn't know how to do it, or doesn't want to. He's very invested in his hedonistic activities. So whether you have this as a plan, that there is more pleasure in following virtue, so you intentionally do it, or you're just programmed as a result of evolution, or you just know that there is harm in vice. Anyway, this gets you to the long-term pleasure, following virtue. But just saying that virtue is a good doesn't convince me, because everything is just pleasure. Everything is just pleasure, man. Like everything is just like, for example, you have friends for pleasure. They have pleasure from you, you have pleasure from them. You go to the coffee shop, you sit your asses down. You sit your ass down. Sorry. You sit down. You sit down. You talk to your friend. There is pleasure. You are sharing pleasure. Suddenly, you stop talking. He grabs his phone, starts scrolling, because suddenly you stopped giving him the pleasure that he wanted. And his brain is forced to get another source of pleasure. When you start talking again, bring in a rumor or bring in a gossip or something interesting, he shuts off his phone and gives you attention. Because pleasure pleasure is the sole essence of life. You might interject to say, but virtue is desirable. Yes, it's desirable, but you can't say it's a good. Alright, because everything is just everything can be just reduced to pleasures and pains. It's a good for the well-being of the group, but we cannot apply this on the individual, you see, because, for example, virtue might stand on his way to pleasure as an individual. Like, for example, you kill a snake and you get praise from it. You kill a butterfly, you're all of a sudden blamed. What's the difference? It's just two animals. I just killed two animals. But one of them I get to be a hero, and one of them I get to be a villain. What is the difference? The difference is the snake forms an actual threat to the survival of the group, but the butterfly is not. The butterfly is a beautiful creature that we want to keep alive for aesthetic purposes. We might go deeper. Like, for example, I myself, not talking about me, but just put an example. I have pleasure in just killing animals. I enjoy killing animals. I have no difference between a snake or a butterfly. What can you tell me? What can you tell me? Morality is not objective. You can't say such thing without resorting to the existence of God, which we can't, of course. So in conclusion, virtue is just this: doing something that the society has labeled as a good to promote its own survival as a group, and be rewarded for it, having a better place in that society or tribe, which makes my chances of surviving better, and avoiding refusal, which makes my chances of dying more. If you do not accept this reductionist view, about virtue and vice, pleasure and pain. You just cannot accept that we are virtuous for pleasure purposes. Just tell me one thing that you do in your whole life. Just give me one example that you do without having pleasure at the end of it. You cannot escape the chemical reward system. You cannot escape that. Again, just give me an example. But anyway, thanks again for watching and see you in the next one.